Jason had always felt out of place on Earth. He grew up in a small town where every day seemed the same and the world outside felt far away. He worked at a hardware store, fixing things for neighbors and keeping to himself. He had a few friends, but no close family. Sometimes, when the store was quiet, he would look up at the sky and wonder what was out there. He liked to think about stars and planets, about other people living far from Earth. Most people would call these dreams silly, but Jason never stopped thinking about them. He never told anyone the real reason why. Years ago, when he was still a young man, something happened that changed his life forever. He had been driving home late at night, the roads empty and the sky full of stars. Suddenly, a bright light flashed across the sky. At first, he thought it was a falling star, but it was too bright and moved too fast. He pulled over, heart pounding, and watched as the light fell behind the hills outside of town. He could not explain why, but he felt a strong need to follow. Jason left his truck by the side of the road and walked toward the light. The grass was wet with dew, and the air felt electric, full of strange sounds. As he climbed the hill, he saw smoke rising from behind a large oak tree. He moved closer, hiding behind bush, and what he saw made him freeze. A small silver ship, no bigger than a van, was half buried in the dirt. Its surface glowed with strange patterns that moved like water. A hatch had opened, and a figure stumbled out, falling to the ground. He watched in shock. The figure was not human. She was tall and thin, with skin the color of pale blue marble. Her hair shone like silver, falling to her shoulders. She wore a simple white suit torn at the knees. Her face was frightened, her eyes wide and glowing faintly in the dark. She looked around, breathing hard, and Jason could see she was hurt. For a moment, Jason thought about running back to his truck. But the girl was alone, and she looked so scared that he could not leave. He took a shaky breath and stepped out from his hiding place. The girl saw him and tried to stand, but her leg gave out. She spoke in a strange, musical language, then switched to English, her voice weak. "Please," she said, "I need help, please." Jason nodded, trying not to show his fear. "I won't hurt you," he said. He moved closer, raising his hands to show he was not a threat. She watched him with wary eyes. He saw that her suit was torn at her side, stained with dark blue blood. Jason crouched beside her and gently helped her sit up. He looked back at the small ship. It was broken and smoking, and he knew she would not be able to fly away. "What happened?" he asked softly. The girl looked away, tears in her eyes. "I crashed. Someone is chasing me. I am not safe here." Jason listened as she tried to explain. Her words were simple, as if she had learned English from a book. Her name was Lyra. She was not from Earth, but from a faraway world called Calaris. Her father was a ruler there, a king, but a war had broken out, and Lyra had been sent away for her own safety. The people chasing her wanted to use her as a hostage to control her father. She had managed to escape her planet in a small craft, but they had followed her across the stars. Her ship had been hit, and she had fallen to Earth. Jason S. Heart ached for her. She was so young and alone, and the thought of people hunting her made him angry. He wanted to help her, but he did not know what to do. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "You can trust me," he said quietly. "I will help you." He helped Lara stand, but she could barely walk. Her ankle was swollen, and she winced with every step. Jason supported her as they moved away from the crash site, knowing they had to hide in case anyone else came looking. He led her through the trees, staying off the main path. It was a long and slow journey, but Jason did not complain. He kept talking to her, telling her simple things about the world, trying to make her feel safe. They reached an old shed at the edge of a field, hidden by overgrown grass and bush. Jason often used it as a quiet place to think. He brought Lyra inside and helped her sit on a bench. The shed was cold and dark, but it was safe for now. Jason found a first aid kit and did his best to clean Lyra's wound. She watched him with tired eyes but did not pull away. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. Jason shrugged. "Because you need help. And because I would want someone to help me if I were lost far from home." Lyra looked at him for a long time, then nodded. She closed her eyes, her breathing slow and deep. Jason stayed by her side, keeping watch through the window. Outside, the night was quiet. He felt a strange sense of calm, as if he was meant to be there. As dawn began to break, Lyra stirred. She looked a little better, her color returning. She told Jason more about her world, about the gardens and skies that changed color with the seasons, about her family and her friends. She missed them all and worried about her father. Jason listened, amazed at her courage. He shared simple stories about Earth, about growing up in a small town, about missing his parents and feeling alone sometimes. The hours passed, and soon Jason heard strange sounds outside the shed. A low humming filled the air. Lyra's eyes widened. "They are coming," she whispered. Jason did not hesitate. He grabbed her hand and led her out the back, through the tall grass. They moved quickly and quietly, hiding behind trees and rocks as a group of dark figures appeared near. The crash site. The strangers wore black armor and moved in silence. They searched the area, looking for signs of Lara. Jason kept low, holding Lyra close. He whispered to her, "We have to keep moving. We can't let them find you." They crept through the fields, avoiding the searchers. At one point, Lyra stumbled, but Jason caught her before she fell. She looked at him, gratitude and fear in her eyes. "You're very brave," she said quietly. "I'm just doing what's right." He replied. As the day wore on, Jason and Lyra finally reached the edge of town. Jason knew a friend who lived on the outskirts, someone he trusted. He knocked on the back door, and his friend Molly opened it, surprised to see him with a stranger. Jason explained as much as he could without telling the whole truth. Molly let them inside and helped bandage Lyra's wounds. For 3 days, Jason and Lyra hid in Molly's house. They took turns keeping watch while Molly brought them food and supplies. Lyra grew stronger each day, her wounds healing quickly. She and Jason talked for hours about their worlds, their dreams, and their fears. A friendship grew between them, gentle and honest. Lyra laughed at Jason's stories, and he found himself smiling more than he had in years. One night, Lyra stood by the window, looking up at the stars. "Do you think I will ever go home?" she asked. Jason joined her. "I hope so. And if you do, you will remember this place. You will remember you have a friend here." Lyra smiled, her eyes shining. "I will never forget you, Jason, not for as long as I live." A few days later, a ship came for Lyra. It was sent by her father's allies, who had finally found her. She hugged Jason tightly, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for saving me," she whispered. "Thank you for being my friend." Then, just as quickly as she had come into his life, Lyra was gone, and the night sky was quiet once more. Jason watched her ship disappear among the stars. He returned to his old life, but nothing felt the same. He never told anyone what had really happened, but every night he looked up at the stars, remembering the blue-skinned princess he had rescued. Even as the years passed, he wondered if he would ever see her again. He hoped, deep in his heart, that their paths would cross once more. Jason's life slowly returned to its old, quiet way after the night he helped Lyra escape. He went back to work at the hardware store, fixing leaky pipes and squeaky doors for his neighbors. He still smiled and nodded when people greeted him, but he felt different inside. The world felt smaller now, and he often found himself looking up at the stars, thinking about the blue-skinned princess who had changed his life. He wondered if she ever thought about him. Most days, Jason walked home from work along the same quiet streets, past the same old houses and empty fields. He did his best to be part of the town, but he always felt like something was missing. The adventure with Lyra felt like a dream, a secret only he remembered. Sometimes when he lay awake at night, he would remember the way Lyra looked at the stars, the way she smiled at his jokes, the fear and hope in her voice when she said goodbye. It was hard to believe she was real and not just a story he told himself. Seasons passed, and nothing unusual happened for a long time. Jason's life became a series of simple routines. He tried to be grateful for the small things. He enjoyed helping Molly fix up her old house, planting flowers in her garden, and talking about ordinary things. Molly became his close friend, the only person he truly trusted, though he never told her the truth about Lyra. He knew she would not believe him. Or maybe she would worry about him if he talked about aliens and distant worlds. Sometimes. Jason would walk out to the hills at night and sit on the same old bench near the shed where he had first hidden with Lara. He would watch the sky for any sign of something strange, but all he saw were ordinary stars and the moon. He tried to move on, but the memory of Lara and those days never faded. One evening, after closing up the store, Jason was walking home when he saw a strange glow in the sky. At first he thought it was a plane, but then the light grew brighter and moved in a way that no plane ever could. His heart began to pound as the light dropped lower, heading toward the field near his house. A sudden wind picked up, carrying a faint humming sound he recognized from long ago. Jason felt both fear and excitement as he hurried toward the light. It landed beyond the old oak tree, just like before. He moved quietly, hiding behind the thick bush, his mind racing with questions. Who could it be? Was it Lyra or someone else? As he reached the field, he saw a large ship, much bigger and grander than the one from years ago. Its surface shone with silver and purple lights that shifted. Like mist, a ramp opened with a soft hiss, and two tall figures in white armor stepped out. They moved with careful grace, scanning the area. Then a third figure appeared between them. She was tall and regal, with pale blue skin and hair that shimmered like moonlight. She wore a long silver robe, and a golden crown rested lightly on her head. Jason stared in shock. It was Lyra, but she looked older, wiser, and more powerful than before. She was not a frightened girl now. She was a queen. Lara saw Jason and gave a small smile, her eyes full of warmth and memory. She raised her hand, and the guard stepped back, letting her walk alone toward him. Jason stood frozen, unsure if he was dreaming. "Jason," Lyra said. Softly, her voice was stronger, but he still heard the kindness in it. "It is good to see you again." Jason could barely speak. "Is it really you?" She nodded. "I promised I would not forget you, and I never did." The night felt alive, with strange energy. The guards watched from the ship as Lyra and Jason stood together under the stars. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Jason searched her face for the girl he once knew, and he saw her in the way she smiled at him. "I thought I would never see you again," he said quietly. "I hoped you would," she replied. "I have searched for you for a long time." "Many things have changed since you saved me, Jason. My father is gone, and I am now queen of my people. But we face great danger again, and I need someone I can trust." Jason felt a mix of pride and worry. He was just a simple man, not a hero or a soldier. "Why me?" he asked. Lyra looked serious. "Because you risked everything to help me when I was lost and afraid. Because you saw me not as an alien, but as a person. I have never forgotten your kindness, and my people know your story. Now I ask for your help once more." Jason shook his head, overwhelmed. "I'm just a normal guy. I don't know anything about being a hero." Lyra smiled gently. "Sometimes the best heroes are the ones who do not think of themselves that way. I will not ask you to fight in a war or wear armor. I only ask for your friendship, your honesty, and your courage. Will you come with me?" The idea of leaving Earth, of seeing other worlds, both thrilled and scared Jason. He thought of his quiet life, his small home, and the friends he would leave behind. But he also remembered the look in Lyra's eyes when she needed help, and the feeling he had. When he saved her all those years ago, he took a deep breath. "I will help you, Lyra. I don't know what I can do, but I will try." Lyra looked truly happy for the first time that night. She thanked him, and together they walked toward the ship. As they climbed the ramp, the guards nodded with respect. Inside, the ship was bright and clean, filled with soft lights and gentle sounds. Jason felt a little out of place, but Lyra stayed close, guiding him gently. The ship lifted off quietly, rising into the sky. Jason looked out the window and saw the fields and his town getting smaller and smaller. He wondered if he would ever see Earth again, but Lyra's calm presence made him feel braver. As they traveled through space, Lyra told Jason more about her world and what had happened since they last met. Her father had died in the war, and she had taken his place as queen. It was a hard life, full of decisions and heavy burdens. Many people doubted her because she was young and because she once needed saving. Her enemies were growing stronger, and they threatened to destroy everything her family had built. Lyra needed someone from outside her world, someone with a different way of thinking. She needed Jason not just as a friend, but as a symbol of hope and unity. Jason listened carefully, feeling the weight of what she was asking. He knew he could not solve all her problems, but he promised to stand by her side and do his best. The journey was long, and Jason spent many hours staring out at the stars. He missed his home, but he also felt a strange sense of adventure and purpose. He and Lyra spent time talking about their lives, their hopes, and the future. They laughed about old memories, and Lyra told him stories about her childhood in the royal palace. Eventually, the ship arrived at Lyra's homeworld. Jason looked out and saw a planet with swirling blue clouds, tall silver mountains, and wide green fields. The palace where Lyra lived was beautiful and bright, with towers that sparkled in the sunlight. People bowed as Lyra stepped out, and they looked at Jason with surprise and curiosity. Lyra introduced Jason as her honored guest and trusted friend. The people did not know what to think of him at first, but Lyra made it clear he was important to her. Jason met her advisors and some of the royal guards. Some were kind, but others looked at him with suspicion. He understood that trust would take time. Lyra showed Jason around the palace and told him about the problems her people faced. Enemies threatened their borders, and old allies were afraid to help. The people were tired from years of war and wanted peace. Lyra believed that having a friend from Earth would show everyone that peace between worlds was possible. Jason tried his best to help. He listened to the advisors and offered simple, honest ideas. He was not a politician, but he knew how to listen and be fair. He encouraged Lyra when she felt lonely or overwhelmed. At night, they walked in the palace gardens, talking quietly about their worries and dreams. Slowly, Jason began to feel at home, and Lyra seemed stronger with him there. In those first days, Jason wondered if he could really make a difference. But Lyra never stopped believing in him, and he promised himself he would not let her down. Together, they faced the challenges ahead, side by side, just as they had years ago on Earth. Jason was not used to life in a royal palace. He had always lived simply, so the bright halls and shining towers felt strange to him. The floors were made of smooth stone that changed color in the sunlight. Every window showed a different view of blue mountains or green gardens. Servants walked quickly and quietly, bowing to Lyra as she passed. Everywhere Jason went, people stared at him with wide eyes, whispering to each other. He tried not to feel out of place, but he knew he was very different from everyone else. Lyra did her best to help Jason feel welcome. She walked with him through the palace gardens and told him the names of the strange flowers. She explained the history of her people and the rules she had to follow as queen. Jason listened closely and tried to learn, but sometimes it was hard. To keep up, he felt grateful for Lyra's patience. She always answered his questions, even the simple ones. One day, Lyra called a meeting with her advisors. Jason sat beside her, feeling nervous. The advisors wore long robes and had serious faces. Some of them had blue or purple skin like Lyra, while others were even stranger, with silver scales or glowing eyes. They spoke quickly in their own language before switching to English so Jason could understand. Lyra told her advisors about the danger her people faced. A powerful enemy from another world wanted to take over her planet. This enemy had strong weapons and a large army. Lyra wanted to find a way to stop a war and protect her people. She believed peace was possible, but she needed help to convince the other leaders. One advisor, an older man named Darren, did not trust Jason. He spoke with a sharp voice. "Why should we listen to this human? He does not know our ways. He is not one of us." Jason felt embarrassed, but Lyra answered calmly. "Jason saved my life when I was young. He saw me as a person, not as an alien. Now, I trust him to help us see things differently. Sometimes we need a new way of thinking." Some of the advisors nodded, but others stayed silent. Jason knew he could not force them to trust him, so he listened quietly and spoke only when asked. When he did speak, he tried to be honest. "I am not a leader," he said. "But on Earth, I learned that talking is better than fighting. Maybe if you talk to your enemies, you can find a way to understand each other. Maybe there is something you both want. The advisors discussed many plans. Some wanted to prepare for battle. Others wanted to run away and find a safer home. Lyra listened to everyone, but in the end she said, I want to try for peace first. We will send a message to our enemies and invite them to talk. Jason will help me write this message. After the meeting, Lyra thanked Jason for his help. She told him that his simple words sometimes made the biggest difference. Jason felt proud but also worried. He did not want Lyra to be disappointed if things did not go well. That night, Jason could not sleep. He walked alone in the gardens, thinking about his old life on Earth. He missed the quiet of his small town, the smell of fresh grass, and the simple tasks at the hardware store. But he also knew that this was important. He was here for a reason. Early the next morning, Jason and Lyra sat together to write the message. Jason helped her choose words that were kind but strong. He told her to offer peace but to make it clear that her people would defend themselves if needed. Lyra trusted his advice and added her own wishes for hope and friendship. When they finished, she sent the message to the enemy leaders. Through a special machine that sent voices and images across the stars, waiting for an answer was hard. Days passed and everyone in the palace was tense. The guards checked the gates more often, and people spoke in whispers. Jason tried to stay busy. He learned more about the customs of Lyra's people and helped her with simple jobs. Sometimes, he joined her in the garden pulling weeds or picking fruit, just to feel useful. One afternoon, Lyra's chief guard, a tall woman named Rena, came to find Jason. The queen wants to see you, she said. Jason followed her to the royal hall, where Lyra stood with her advisors. We received an answer, Lyra said. The enemy leaders have agreed to talk. They will come to the palace tomorrow. Jason felt both relief and worry. Are you sure it is safe? Lyra nodded. It is a risk, but we must take it. I want you by my side, Jason. Your presence will show that I trust people from other worlds. The next day, the enemy leaders arrived. They came in a dark ship with sharp angles and loud engines. Their guards wore heavy armor, and their faces were hidden behind masks. The leaders themselves were tall, with gray skin and golden eyes. They looked around the palace with cold interest. The meeting was tense at first. Both sides remembered the pain of the war and the loss of family. The enemy leaders spoke about their fear of Lyra's people growing too strong. They said they wanted peace, but only if they could trust her. Jason watched Lyra closely. She was calm and polite, but he could see how hard it was for her. He wanted to help, but he was just a guest. Then, one of the enemy leaders asked about him. Who is this human? The leader asked in a strange, deep voice. Lyra answered with pride. His name is Jason. He saved my life long ago, and he is my trusted friend. He comes from a world far from here. He teaches me about hope and trust. The enemy leaders looked at Jason, studying him with their golden eyes. Jason felt nervous, but stood tall. I come from Earth, he said. On my world, I learned that peace is hard but worth it. I believe you and Queen Lyra can find a way to end this fight. The leaders spoke in their own language, then one of them nodded slowly. We will talk. But if there is a trick, there will be no mercy. The first meeting lasted hours. Lyra and her advisors tried to show they wanted peace. The enemy leaders asked many questions and made demands. Jason listened and helped Lyra when she looked unsure. Sometimes he reminded her to stay calm and to speak from the heart. After the meeting, Lyra looked tired but hopeful. You did well, Jason. I do not know what will happen, but today we made a start. The days that followed were busy and stressful. The enemy leaders stayed in the palace under close watch. Lyra and Jason met with them again. And again, they talked about borders, trade, and the rights of both peoples. Sometimes the talks grew heated, and guards had to step between the leaders. Jason tried to bring peace when tempers rose. He told simple stories from Earth about neighbors who fought but later became friends. He reminded everyone that children on both sides deserved a better future. Lyra told him later that his words made her feel stronger. Not everyone wanted peace. Some of Lyra's advisors said it was better to fight. Some of the enemy leaders whispered threats. Jason noticed that some guards watched him with suspicion. He understood he had to be careful. One evening, while walking in the gardens, Jason found Lara sitting alone. She looked worried. "Sometimes I feel lost," she said. "My father was always so sure. I'm afraid of making the wrong choice." Jason sat beside her. "You are not alone, Lyra. You have good people around you, and you have me. You do not have to be perfect. You just have to try your best." Lyra smiled, her eyes soft. "Thank you, Jason. I am glad you are here." The next morning, there was a small ceremony. Both Lyra and the enemy leaders signed a paper promising to work for peace. It was not a perfect agreement, but it was a start. Jason stood beside Lyra. As people cheered quietly, he saw hope in their faces. Later that night, Lyra and Jason watched the stars from a palace window. Lyra whispered, "I would not have made it this far without you." Jason felt a deep sense of purpose. He knew the road ahead would still be hard, but he was ready to stand by Lyra's side, no matter what happened next. Jason was learning every day. Life in the palace was not easy for him, but he tried his best. He woke up early every morning and walked through the halls, passing servants and guards who bowed to him out of respect for the queen. He felt strange, being called a friend of the queen. He still saw himself as a regular man from Earth who just wanted to help. The food was different, the air was cooler, and the way people spoke sometimes confused him. But he was determined to do what he could. For Lyra and her people, some of Lyra's advisors still doubted him. Darren, the old advisor who never smiled, kept watching Jason. Sometimes Jason heard the whispers in the halls. They said a human did not belong in the palace. Some thought he was a risk. Others worried that he would make mistakes that could bring danger. Jason knew that trust was not easy to earn, so he worked even harder to show he was loyal and honest. Each day, Lyra met with her advisors to talk about the peace agreement. Jason was there, listening and sometimes speaking when Lyra asked him. He was careful with his words. He knew he was not as smart or clever as the others in the room, but he had a simple way of seeing things that Lyra valued. He often reminded her to look for the good in people, to give her enemies a chance to change, and to trust her own heart. The peace agreement was still new and fragile. Both sides needed time to build trust. Some enemy leaders stayed in the city, watched closely by the guards. They met with Lyra and her advisors to talk about new trade and opening the borders. Sometimes the meetings went well. Sometimes old anger returned and people argued. Jason did his best to keep the talks friendly. He told stories from Earth about farmers who shared their land and neighbors who helped each other after storms. Lyra said these stories helped everyone remember what peace could look like. One evening, Jason was walking in the garden when he saw Rena, the chief guard. She was sitting alone by the fountain, her eyes full of worry. Jason sat down beside her. Rena was always strong and calm, but tonight she looked tired. "Are you all right?" Jason asked gently. Rena nodded slowly. "Things are changing so fast. I worry for the queen. There are some who do not want peace, even in our own city." Jason nodded. "Change is hard for everyone, but you care about Lara, you protect her." Rena looked at Jason with soft eyes. "You protect her too, in your own way. Sometimes that is harder than fighting." They sat together for a while, not needing to say more. Jason felt a sense of peace, knowing that even those who were strong and brave also felt afraid sometimes. The next day, during a council meeting, trouble arrived. A messenger ran into the room, out of breath. He said that a group of angry citizens had gathered in the city square. They shouted against the peace agreement and said the queen was betraying her people. Lyra's face grew sad, but she stood up quickly. "We must go speak to them," Lyra said. Jason followed her, along with Rena and several guards. The square was full of people, many holding signs and shouting. Some were scared. Others were just angry. Lyra stood on the steps and raised her hand for silence. It took time, but slowly the crowd grew quiet. "I know you are afraid," Lyra said, her voice steady. "Many of you lost family in the war. You do not trust our enemies, and you do not trust this peace, but we must try. War has taken too much from us. If we do not try for peace, we will lose even more. Someone in the crowd shouted, "You trust the human more than your own people." Jason felt the eyes of the crowd on him. He looked at Lyra, unsure of what to say. Lyra shook her head and spoke again. "Jason is my friend. He risked his life to save me once, and now he is helping us find a new path. He is not here to rule, or to change who we are. He is here because sometimes we need to see our world through different eyes." I ask you to give him a chance, just as I did. Some people nodded. Others looked unsure. But the shouting stopped, and the crowd slowly went back to their homes. Lyra turned to Jason and gave him a grateful smile. "Thank you for standing with me," she whispered. "You are not alone," Jason said quietly. As the days passed, the peace agreement was tested many times. There were small fights in the city between people who wanted peace and those who wanted to fight. Jason helped Lyra by listening to the worries of her people. Sometimes he went to the markets and talked to the shopkeepers, telling them about Earth and how people there also struggled with change. He learned their names, listened to their stories, and became someone they could trust. One evening, Lyra invited Jason to her private room for tea. The room was warm and filled with soft lights. Lyra looked tired but happy to see him. "I'm glad you are here, Jason," she said. "I feel safe when you are near," Jason smiled. "I feel safe with you too. I am still learning, but I want to help you as much as I can." Lyra poured him a cup of tea. "Sometimes I miss the days before I became queen. Life was simpler. I could go outside and walk in the gardens without guards or fear. Now, every choice I make could change everything for my people. I worry I will make the wrong decision." Jason reached out and took her hand. "You are a good queen, Lyra. You care about your people, and you try to do what is right. That is all anyone can do." Lyra squeezed his hand and smiled. For a while, they sat quietly, drinking tea and talking about small things. Jason felt a warmth in his heart. He was glad to be her friend. Not all news was good. One day, a trusted guard came to Lyra with a warning. There were rumors that someone in the palace was working with the enemies who wanted to break the peace. Lyra looked at Jason, worry in her eyes. "What should we do?" she asked. Jason thought for a moment. "Find out who you can trust. Talk to people yourself. Sometimes the answers come from simple questions." Lyra nodded and spent the next days quietly meeting with her staff. She asked about their families, their worries, and their hopes. Some people were honest. Others avoided her eyes. Jason watched, noticing the small things, the nervous looks and quiet whispers. One evening, Jason found a servant crying in a hallway. He sat beside her and asked what was wrong. The servant, a young woman named Kara, said she had heard two men talking about a plan to hurt the queen during the next council meeting. She was afraid to tell anyone, but she trusted Jason. Jason brought Kara to Lyra, and together they listened to her story. Lyra called for Rena, and the guard quickly set a plan to protect the council room. On the day of the meeting, the guards were ready. When the two men tried to get close to Lyra, they were caught and arrested. They had been working with the enemies, hoping to break the peace. The news spread quickly. Many people in the city were shocked, but also relieved. They saw that the queen and her guards were watching over them, and that even when danger came, there were people who cared enough to protect them. After the trouble passed, Lyra and Jason sat together in the garden. Lyra looked at the sky, full of stars. "I am learning so much," she said softly. "Sometimes it is hard, but I am glad you are here, Jason." "You see things that others do not?" Jason smiled at her. "I am learning too. I never thought I would be part of something so important." Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder, and for a moment they sat together in peace. The night was quiet and the city was safe. Jason knew that more challenges would come, but he also knew that together they could face anything. He thought about his old life on Earth, and for the first time he did not miss it. He felt at home with Lyra and her people. He was proud to be part of their story. As the stars shined above, Jason knew that his life had changed forever, and he was ready for whatever came next as long as he could face it with Lyra by his side. The days after the danger in the council room passed slowly for Jason and Lyra. Life in the palace returned to a calm rhythm, but a sense of worry stayed in the air. People were more careful, and guards watched every hallway and entrance. Lyra's trust in her friends grew stronger, and so did her trust in Jason. He was now a familiar face to the palace staff and to people in the city. More and more they came to him with their questions and hopes. He listened patiently and always spoke with kindness. Lyra invited leaders from the enemy side to stay in the palace so they could learn more about each other. At first there was tension. Some of Lyra's people did not want their old enemies in their city. Some of the guests from the other side acted cold and suspicious. But Lyra and Jason worked together to create peace. They organized meals and meetings where people from both sides could share stories about their families and dreams. Jason remembered how his mother used to say that sharing food could make even strangers feel like friends. He told Lyra this, and she agreed. One evening, Jason and Lyra hosted a simple dinner in the palace gardens. They invited leaders from both sides, palace guards, workers, and ordinary people from the city. They all sat together at long tables. Under the stars, the food was simple but good, with bread, fruits, and sweet drinks. At first, people sat quietly, looking at their plates or glancing at the queen. Jason broke the silence with a story about growing up on Earth, helping his neighbors build a new fence after a storm. Lyra shared a story from her childhood about helping her friends plant a tree. Soon, others joined in. Laughter grew, and people began to see that their worries and hopes were not so different. After the dinner, an enemy leader named Scylan came to Jason. Scylan was tall and had dark gray skin and sharp eyes. He had always watched Jason closely, as if trying to solve a puzzle. Now he looked almost friendly. "You are different from most people here," Scylan said. "You do not act like a hero, but you help people." "Why do you care so much?" Jason thought for a moment. "Because everyone needs help sometimes, and because Lyra believes in me. I want to help her and her people." Scylan nodded slowly. "Maybe that is what our worlds need. Less pride and more care." As the days went on, Jason was asked to help with the peace talks. Lyra said his calm way of speaking helped everyone stay focused. He tried to use simple words that everyone could understand. He always told the truth, even when it was hard. Sometimes he had to remind the leaders that peace was not just for them, but for the children who would grow up in their new world. Slowly, more people began to trust him. Even Darren, the old advisor who had doubted him from the start, started to listen to what he had to say. One day, as they were preparing for another big meeting, Lyra came to find Jason in the garden. She looked tired but hopeful. "The enemy leaders want to sign a new agreement," she said. "They will meet us in the council room tonight. But I am afraid someone may try to break the peace again." Jason nodded. "Then we must be careful, but we must also be brave. We cannot let fear win." Lyra smiled and squeezed his hand. "I am glad you are here with me." That evening, the council room was filled with leaders, guards, and advisors. The room was bright and everyone's voices were soft and serious. Lyra spoke first, telling everyone that peace would bring hope to their people. She spoke about the pain of war and the need for a new start. Then the enemy leaders spoke. They said they also wanted peace but needed to know that Lyra would keep her promises. Jason listened to both sides. When it was his turn to speak, he stood up and looked at everyone in the room. "Peace is not easy," he said. "It means we must forgive old hurts and trust people we once called enemies. It means we must work together, even when it is hard. But peace is worth it. It gives our children a chance to live without fear." As Jason finished speaking, a loud crash sounded in the hallway outside. Guards ran to the door. A group of men in dark clothes tried to rush into the room. They shouted that the queen was a traitor and tried to reach her. Jason saw the fear in Lyra's eyes, but she stood tall. Rena, the chief guard, and her team quickly blocked the attackers. Jason moved to stand in front of Lyra, shielding her with his own body. He felt afraid, but he did not run. Instead, he shouted for everyone to stay calm and trust the guards. The fighting was quick but loud. Soon, the guards had stopped the attackers and dragged them away. The room was silent. Lyra took a deep breath and spoke to the leaders. "This is what fear can do," she said. It makes people angry and desperate, but I will not let fear rule my heart. I will keep working for peace." The enemy leaders looked at her with new respect. Scylla spoke first. "Your bravery has shown us that peace is possible. We will sign the agreement." That night, the leaders from both sides signed a new paper, promising to work together. Jason was proud of Lara and of everyone in the room who chose hope over fear. After the meeting, Lara and Jason walked together in the quiet halls of the palace. Lyra was shaking, and Jason gently put his arm around her shoulders. "I was so afraid," she said softly, "but you made me feel safe." "I was afraid too," Jason admitted. "But sometimes being brave just means not giving up." Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for staying with me." The days that followed were better. People in the city heard about the Queen's bravery and the peace agreement. Some were still angry or afraid, but most began to hope. There were new markets where people from both sides traded goods. Children played together in the streets. The palace held a festival for the first time in many years, with music, lights, and dancing. Jason helped hang decorations and even learned some of the local dances. He laughed with Lyra and her friends, feeling for the first time like he truly belonged. One afternoon, Jason and Lyra visited a school in the city. The children asked them questions about Earth and about the days before peace. Lyra told them that Jason had once saved her life, and now he was helping her save their world. The children cheered and wanted to shake Jason's hand. He felt shy, but happy. As the sun set, Lyra and Jason walked back to the palace together. They talked about the future and about dreams they still had. Lyra said she wanted to travel to Earth someday and see Jason's home. Jason said he hoped she would visit his small town and meet his old friends. They promised to always help each other, no matter where life took them. That night, as they looked out at the stars, Jason felt a deep peace. He knew there would still be hard days ahead, but he was proud of what they had done. He was grateful for Lyra's trust and friendship. He was happy to call her his friend and his queen, the story of the queen. And the human who saved her became famous in the city. People spoke about Jason's kindness and Lyra's courage. Their story gave hope to everyone who wanted a better life. Jason knew his old life on Earth would always be part of him, but now he belonged to this new world, too. He was ready for whatever the future would bring, as long as he could face it with Lyra by his side. Jason watched the sunrise from the palace balcony, the sky painted in soft pink and orange. He felt a gentle peace in his heart. The city below was waking up, and he could hear the faint sounds of birds and distant voices. Life had changed so much for him since he first met Lyra. He no longer felt like a stranger in a strange land. He felt at home. Lyra joined him quietly, holding 2 cups of warm tea. She handed one to Jason and smiled. "Good morning," she said softly. "I thought you might like this." Jason nodded, taking a sip. The tea was mild and sweet, with a hint of flower petals. It reminded him of Earth's morning breakfast, but with an alien twist. "Thank you," he said. "It's perfect." He looked at Lyra's face in the soft light and remembered the frightened girl he once helped. Now she was a strong queen, wise and brave. Jason felt proud to stand beside her. They stood together, watching the sky. The palace guards were already patrolling the walls, and workers were opening the gates for traders and visitors. The peace agreement had brought new life to the city. Merchants from both sides sold goods in the market, and children from different worlds played together in the streets. For the first time in years, the city felt alive with hope. "Today is a special day," Lyra said. "We will open the new council hall where leaders from all worlds can meet. This hall will stand as a symbol of our promise to each other." She paused, looking at Jason. "And I want you here with me?" Jason smiled. "I would not miss it." He set down his cup and joined Lyra as they walked back inside to prepare. Hours later, the new council hall was filled with leaders, advisors, and guests. The hall was simple but beautiful, with tall windows that let in bright light and walls decorated with symbols of unity. Jason stood near Lyra as she greeted each visitor, her confidence clear in every gesture. During the ceremony, Lyra spoke to the gathered crowd. She thanked everyone for their courage and patience. She spoke about the days of war and the long road to peace. Then she looked at Jason and said, "This man taught me that peace begins with friendship. He reminds us that we are all part of a larger family under the stars." The crowd listened in respectful silence. Jason felt his cheeks warm as people applauded. He looked at Lyra with gratitude. After the ceremony, they walked through the hall together, greeting people and listening to their stories. Jason heard tales of farmers who shared seeds across borders, of families reunited after years apart, and of children who dreamed of a world without fear. As the sun began to set, Jason and Lyra stepped outside into the courtyard. Torches flickered along the paths, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of night-blooming flowers. Lyra took Jason's hand and led him to a small stage where musicians played soft melodies on stringed instruments. "Dance with me," Lyra whispered. Jason hesitated, then smiled and placed his hand on her waist. They moved slowly, the music guiding them. Around them, guests and citizens joined in, dancing in small circles under the stars. Jason had never danced like this, but with Lyra's gentle guidance, he felt his steps grow more confident. After the dance, they sat on a low wall overlooking the gardens. Lyra leaned against Jason's shoulder. "I never imagined life could be like this," she said. "I worried I would always feel alone in this role." She paused. "But now I know I have friends and family in many worlds, and I have you." Jason wrapped his arm around her. "You will never be alone," he promised. "I will stay by your side as long as you need me." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes shining. "There is something else I want to ask." She stood and led him to a quiet corner near a fountain. "You know I offered you a place here, among my people. I would like you to accept a new role. Will you become an envoy between Earth and Calaris? You would travel with me and help build relationships with other worlds." Jason thought of his old life on Earth, his small town, his friends, Molly, and the quiet days at the hardware store. He missed those simple pleasures, but he also felt a pull toward this new life of adventure and purpose. He looked at Lyra's hopeful face and knew what he wanted. "I accept," he said with a smile. "I will be your envoy." Lyra's face lit up. She took his hand and pressed it to her heart. "Thank you, Jason. You honor me." In the days that followed, Jason prepared for his new duties. He packed a small bag with clothes from Earth and Calaris, and he wrote letters to Molly and his old neighbors, telling them he was well and that he had found an important purpose. Lyra worked with her advisors to arrange safe passages to other worlds. Soon, Jason would travel to new places, meet new people, and share the stories of peace. One morning, as he finished his preparations, Molly arrived. She had come from Earth. Through a special portal Lyra had opened. Jason ran to hug her, feeling tears of joy. Molly looked at him, amazed by the palace around her, and then she hugged him tightly. "I knew you could do great things," she said. "I'm so proud of you." She looked at Lyra and smiled. "Thank you for bringing Jason back to us." Lyra bowed slightly. "Molly, you are welcome here any time." The three friends spent the day exploring the palace and gardens, sharing memories and making new ones. As the time for Jason's first mission approached, Lyra and he stood at the edge of spaceport. A sleek ship waited, its engines glowing softly. Lyra wore her queenly robes, and Jason wore a simple uniform with a badge showing both Earth and Calaris flags. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked. Jason took a deep breath and nodded. "More than ever." He looked at the ship and then at Lyra. "Let's show the universe what friendship can do." Lyra smiled and held out her hand. Together they walked down the ramp and boarded. The ship, inside, pilots prepared for takeoff. Jason found his seat and looked out the window at Calaris, its shining towers and green fields fading into the distance. As the ship lifted off, Jason felt excitement and peace. He thought of the journey ahead, new worlds, new people, and new challenges. But he also knew that no matter where he went, he would carry with him the lessons he had learned, that kindness and honesty could build bridges, that courage was facing fear for others, and that hope could light the darkest days. Lyra took her seat beside him and placed her hand on his. "Thank you for believing in me," she said. "Thank you for believing in me," Jason replied. The stars stretched out before them, and together they set course for a new adventure. ready to write the next chapter of their story, one of unity, friendship, and peace among the stars.